Анна была единственным ребенком в своей семье, не очень богатой, но жившей в достатке. Мама всю жизнь работала в торговле обычным продавцом, а папа целыми днями крутил баранку, доставляя пассажиров на рейсовом автобусе. Родители старались сделать все возможное для того, чтобы и Аннушка ни в чем не нуждалась. Девочка всегда только радовала родителей, была прилежной ученицей и активисткой. От учителей они слышали лишь благодарность за воспитание и похвалу в адрес прилежной хорошистки. Анна не претендовала на золотую медаль, но все оценки были лишь четверки и пятерки, притом очень крепкие. Девушка, окончив школу, поступила в техникум и через несколько лет получила диплом бухгалтера. По окончанию учебы она устроилась в банк, где хорошо себя зарекомендовала еще на практике. Анютой очень было довольно руководство. Тихая и скромная сотрудница была прекрасным работником, с первого дня втянувшимся в свои обязанности. Она очень хорошо находила общий язык даже с конфликтными клиентами. Всегда была готова заменить заболевших сотрудниц, соглашаясь выйти в их смены. В коллективе тоже все очень хорошо относились к новенькой и всегда были готовы помочь. Однажды одна из коллег решила провести день рождения в кафе. Не принимая возражений, она пригласила всех после работы отметить ее очередные 18, несмотря на паспортные 32. В тот вечер в этой кафешке было очень много молодежи. На одну из медленных композиций Анну пригласил на танец высокий молодой человек с красивыми голубыми глазами. Он очень галантно ухаживал в этот вечер за девушкой, рассказывая о своих целях в жизни. А цели были великими. Он обещал, что точно будет богатым и неважно какими методами. Возможно, этим он завоевал доверие юной леди, и она в конце вечера была буквально покорена Антоном. Через несколько месяцев они расписались, несмотря на сопротивление Аниных родителей. Мама с папой были категорически против ничего не добившегося в жизни молодого человека с горящими глазами и кучей амбиций. Молодые зарегистрировали брак тихо, без громких застолий, в узком кругу друзей. Родители девушки не присутствовали на свадьбе по причине непринятия жениха, а родители будущего мужа никогда не возникали в его жизни, якобы обиженные за отъезд сына в другой город. Анна так никогда и не видела и не слышала о них ничего, даже не знала, в каком месте они живут. Муж категорически не хотел говорить на эту тему. После свадьбы девушка продолжила работать в банке. Молодой муж лишь круглые сутки сидел в интернете, объясняя это необходимостью поиска вариантов бизнеса. Аня же очень хотела родить ребеночка, но Антон каждый раз пресекал такие разговоры, объясняя тем, что надо сначала на ноги встать, а уже потом о детях думать. Но как же встать на ноги, если в семье весь доход состоял из Аниной зарплаты и порой небольшой помощи от родителей? Однажды, когда Аня пришла уставшая домой, Антон встретил ее с горящими глазами и сказал: «Малыш, ты не представляешь, какими мы будем богатыми. Я наконец-то все продумал. Завтра тебе надо подать заявку на кредит, тебе уж точно не откажут. А дальше, через полгода мы будем самой богатой семьей в городе». Анна не смогла отказать любимому и, поверив в его планы, на следующий день написала заявление на долгосрочную ссуду. Лучшему сотруднику банка, конечно, не могли отказать, и руководство сразу одобрило заявку. На получение заявленной суммы приехал муж, объясняя это тем, что не стоит оставлять их на работе. Забрав деньги, он отправился домой. Но не доехал. Случилось страшное. По непонятным причинам машина оказалась в кювете, охваченной огнем. Самое странное, что произошло это совершенно в другом месте, а не на дороге, ведущей из банка к дому. Трасса была пустынной, и не было ни одного свидетеля произошедшей аварии. Долгие следственные мероприятия не помогли разобраться, отчего воспылал вполне нормальный автомобиль. Машина загорелась за пару минут и выгорела буквально дотла. При этом ничто не предвещало беды. Автомобиль был исправным, а погодные условия прекрасными. Причину аварии так и не установили, а Аннушка стала молодой вдовой. Самым страшным в этой ситуации был оставшийся после смерти мужа кредит в банке. Антон уехал с полученным займом на жену, но сумки с деньгами, точнее даже похожих на нее остатков, на месте аварии не было. Куда пропали деньги, было непонятно. В машине не нашли. Операции со счетами муж тоже не проводил. В конечном итоге, оформив кредит на себя, Анна обязана была его выплатить. Решив побыстрее снять с себя банковскую кабалу, девушка продала жилье в городе, полученное в наследство от бабушки, и, выплатив большую часть долга, на оставшуюся сумму купила маленький, очень старый домик в соседней деревне. Ей хотелось бежать подальше от сострадательных взглядов знакомых, от места, где так печально закончилась ее неудачная семейная жизнь, и даже от могилы, оставившего ее одну супруга. Анна решила начать все с чистого листа, сменив место жительства. Работу она нашла в районном центре, в местном банке, где с радостью взяли отличного специалиста. Так и стала Аннушка каждый день, сев на рейсовый автобус, отправляться из деревни в райцентр на работу, а вечером обратно. Ей понравилось жить в небольшой деревеньке, рядом был прекрасный лес с грибами и ягодами. По утрам она просыпалась под пение птиц и радовалась, что поселилась тут. Дом был очень старый и заброшенный. Видно, много лет простоял без хозяев. Возможно, по этой причине цена у него была сущие копейки. Навести порядок даже за неделю было нереально, поэтому девушка делала это постепенно, каждый день понемногу, вечером и по выходным. В первую очередь она намыла небольшую кухоньку и маленькую комнату рядом с ней, чтобы хоть было где кушать и спать. Натерла до блеска окна, освежила купленные в райцентре краской двери подоконники, повесила шторы и сразу стало как-то уютней. Мебель в доме была очень старой, но еще вполне пригодной для использования. Работы впереди много. Разобрать завалы хлама и навести порядок в двух оставшихся комнатках и освободить небольшой чуланчик для гардеробной. Так Аня решила приспособить маленькую комнату без окон, но с полками. Ее никто не торопил, и она знала, что постепенно везде разберет, и дом станет теплым и светлым. Однажды утром, выходя на работу, она услышала жалобное скуление где-то под крыльцом. Заглянув туда, она увидела маленький черно-белый комочек, смотрящий испуганно на нее глазками, полными слез. Щенок мелко дрожал и поскуливал. «Ты мой хороший», – сказала девушка, поднимая малыша на руки. «Как же ты сюда попал, бедолага? Ты, наверное, кушать хочешь?» Она вернулась домой, налила пятнистому найденышу молочка и продолжила. «Ну, я побежала на работу, а ты уж тут не бузи. Вернусь, будем знакомиться». Погладив малыша по пушистой голове, побежала на автобус. Придя вечером, она с порога была встречена веселым лаем и радостным вилянием хвостом. Освоившийся песик показывал свой восторг на приход новой хозяйки. Теперь Аннушка с радостью бежала после работы домой, ведь ее всегда встречал верный друг. С того дня Анна была под хорошей охраной. Преданный пес готов был порвать любого, кто хоть шаг делал в сторону его хозяйки. Спустя время Пух, так его называла Анна, из маленького щенка превратился в огромного пса, способного сбить с ног любого врага. Но, слава богу, таких в их округе не было. Но надежная охрана была не лишней для хрупкой одинокой девушки. Да и жить вдвоем с псом стало намного веселее. До появления Пуха девушка часто мысленно возвращалась в свое ужасное прошлое, вспоминая про погибшего супруга, безумный долг перед банком, проданную квартиру. Теперь, когда появился пес, она стала все свободное время играть с собакой и уходить с ним в лес. В одну из таких прогулок Пух, сорвавшись с места, побежал навстречу шедшего по тропинке мужчины. «Пух, фу, нельзя! Вернись, Пух!» – закричала девушка, боясь, что собака накинется на мужчину. Анна побежала следом, надеясь успеть остановить пса. Но Пух, подбежав к мужчине, из грозного защитника превратился в податливого теленка и стал тереться о протянутую руку. «Ах ты пропажа!» – ласково говорил парень. «Вот как ты вымахал-то, красавица, умница!» Оказывается, его собака Герда родила когда-то щенков, и один из них пропал. Пух и был тем самым потеряшкой. Молодой человек оказался чуть старше Анны. Его звали Иван, и он был местным лесником. Они долго бродили по лесу, общаясь на разные темы. Девушке очень понравился высокий, статный молодой человек. Да и Анна ему была явно симпатична. Молодые люди стали незаметно для себя чаще встречаться и бродить с Пухом и Гердой по лесу. В очередной выходной Анна взялась за уборку следующей комнаты. Выбросив кучу старого ненужного хлама из шкафов, выдвинула ящик стола, стоящего в центре комнаты. Высыпав все содержимое на стол, она вскрикнула и закрыла лицо руками. С одной из выпавших фотографий на нее смотрел погибший Антон. Мужчина радостно улыбался и держал за талию красивую стройную блондинку. Лица обоих светились от счастья. Но Анну добила дата в нижнем углу фотографии. Снимок был сделан через пару месяцев после того, как она похоронила мужа. Получается, что супруг воскрес, чтобы счастливо фотографироваться с этой пышной блондинкой? Анна быстро нашла телефон агента, занимавшегося продажей этого дома. По ее просьбе он дал номер бывшего хозяина избушки. Игорь, владелец, продавший дом, сразу вспомнил, что незадолго до сделки его действительно снимала красивая парочка. Анна стала умолять найти контактные данные молодого человека, который просил об аренде. Номер муж, конечно, сменил, но Анна точно знала – это он. Изменив голос, она в тот же день позвонила обманщику и якобы как посторонний человек заявила, что знает о его махинации. Антон, помолчав, спросил, что она хочет взамен молчания. Девушка потребовала денег. Они договорились встретиться. И Анна, заранее написав заявление в полицию о мошеннике, отправилась навстречу, прихватив диктофон. Увидев ее, бывший муж был сильно удивлен. Хотя их встреча могла произойти значительно раньше, останься девушка в их квартире. Ведь переселился Антон буквально в соседний дом, к той самой блондинке с фотографией. Именно она ему подкинула идею подставить Аню и, украв кучу денег, подстроить аварию. В салон автомобиля посадили какого-то местного бомжа, подходившего по параметрам, и одели ему на руку обручальное кольцо Антона с гравировкой. Именно по нему опознала останки Аня. Парочка подожгла автомобиль и столкнула с дороги. Понимая, что необходимо какое-то время переждать в тишине и глуши, они снимали этот домик, весело проводя время и радуясь, что обманули наивную дурочку жену. «Ты же понимаешь, что теперь я должен тебя прикончить? Мы не дадим разрушить так гениально придуманный план, и меня ничто не сможет остановить». Место было предложено для встречи им, поэтому Антон все хорошо продумал. Это был самый дальний угол полузаброшенного парка. Тут даже бродячие собаки редко бегали. Антон только достал маленький пистолет, как обе его руки были схвачены и заломлены за спину. Все произошло так быстро, что он даже не успел сообразить. Вовремя подоспевшие полицейские спасли Анну от неименуемой гибели. Девушка передала следователю запись диктофона. Муж со своей сообщницей были задержаны. Антону ко всей его афере еще и покушение добавили. Теперь ему точно долгое время не понадобятся деньги, как и его подружке. Аня осталась жить в доме, который уже до конца разобрала, навела порядок и создала уют. Иван помог поправить покосившееся крыльцо и подлатать крышу. Он теперь часто помогал Анюте, при необходимости. Остаток долга по кредиту был погашен за счет конфискованных у Антона денег. Девушка продолжала работать в банке. По вечерам на остановке часто видели высокого мужчину с двумя огромными псами, встречавшего Аннушку с работы. Иван начал ухаживать за девушкой. Между ними развивались теплые романтические отношения. Анна уже почти не вспоминает о своем кошмарном прошлом и лишь надеется на прекрасное будущее. Если вам понравился рассказ, просьба поддержать меня кнопкой «Палец вверх». А чтобы узнавать о выходе новых интересных историй, при подписке нажмите колокольчик. Всего вам доброго.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? Is something wrong?" Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. All right, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? Alright, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong. Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. I didn't do anything wrong. You're still saying that? Look at him. Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract? Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go. Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him. There's no way he was pushed aside. Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he? I don't remember that part. I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.